following items. The first is item 4, a public hearing for the Unified Development Code text amendment filed by the City of Onalaska related to the downtown planned unit development size and parking standards. The applicant is the City of Onalaska. So I'll ask first for anyone who would like to speak in favor of the Unified Development Code text amendment. Second call, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call for anyone who would like to speak in favor of the Unified Development Code text amendment. That portion of the public hearing is now closed, and I'll ask if anyone would like to speak against the text amendment for the Unified Development Code. Anyone wishing to speak against? Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak against the Unified Development Code text amendment. Okay, the public hearing is now closed, and I will refer the matter to our city planner, Katie Aspenson, for a brief recap of this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. At the May 2022 Plan Commission meeting, city staff were directed to draft language allowing properties within downtown Onalaska to reduce the requirement of up to 25% of off-street parking on their property or through a parking agreement via a level 1 reduction request by the zoning administrator and city staff, or up to a 50% reduction considered a level 2 reduction request with Plan Commission and Common Council approval. From this, city staff completed additional research in our entire downtown plan unit development overlay, which already exists within our community. Specifically looking at the commercial related properties, only 38% of the parcels would be able to apply for a downtown PUD because only 38% have a 1/4 acre minimum, which is the smallest amount of acreage we allow for a planned unit development in our downtown. So based upon this information and in the spirit of allowing as much flexibility that we can give to our downtown business owners and also those located within the downtown planning development, city staff are proposing to amend that existing district and remove that 0.25 acreage requirement that would allow all non-residential parcels access to this redevelopment tool. Access to this tool would provide the means for a non-conforming structure if it didn't meet a setback or a parking requirement to become legal and conforming if their requested deviations were approved by the Plan Commission and Common Council. Again, setbacks, parking, screening, landscaping, which essentially would aid in refinancing options and also future sales for our business owners today. However, to note that only the properties that are located within downtown Onalaska, and there's a map within your packet this evening, would be able to opt into the level 1 or level 2 parking reductions. All of the other properties that are commercial within that area or non-residential would just have access via the planned unit development process, and they could make whatever deviation requests they did so desire, and it would ultimately be up to the Plan Commission and Common Council. Included in your packet this evening is the map that I just mentioned, and also the existing language of our downtown planned unit development, which is in black. All of the proposed deviations are in red, briefly highlighting that the 1/4 acre minimum size would be removed. And then primarily it's under number 7, parking, where we discuss the downtown parking level requests for a level 1 and level 2, as previously mentioned. We also go into our development procedure summary. So if people have a question as to who would be reviewing the application, is there a public hearing required or not, that's been updated in the table. And then we also noted for procedurally the establishment of this downtown planned unit development, what the review process would be to do a level 1 reduction with staff as opposed to a level 2 reduction with the Plan Commission and Common Council. Happy to address any questions that you might have with this language.
Okay, thank you for that recap, Katie. We appreciate it. And at this time, I'll turn the matter over to the Plan Commission.
I think the proposed changes make a lot of sense.
Bill, can you move your mic a little closer?
My feeling is that these proposed changes in red make a lot of sense to try to address. I don't know how you did it without these changes. We must have just sort of not been too strict, or what was going on in the past.
Bill, can you make a motion and then we'll get this on the floor?
Oh, okay. I make a motion to approve the changes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Bill Lethan, seconded by Tom Smith to approve the text amendment for the Unified Development Code. Now, Bill, go ahead and ask your
Okay, well,
question.
my question is, this all looks really good. What were we doing prior to this?
Specifically related to parking.
Yeah,
So in the event that a business changed hands and it went from retail to retail or restaurant to restaurant, they were not required to provide any new parking. However, a different example would be the Masonic Temple, because in those instances, the use did not change. But with the previous Masonic Temple building, that was a site that was primed for redevelopment. So when they decided to change the use, they were required to provide all of the parking and find it through a development agreement of the sort, a parking agreement. So what's not shown in this section is that if you have a parking lot that's within 500 feet of the door, you have the ability to work with that property owner and do a parking agreement for shared parking. So we've already been doing that to some degree, but this is just another tool. If you do not happen to be within 500 square or 500 linear feet of another property. It's just another tool that we're trying to offer to our downtowns to keep our downtown vibrant and healthy.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wanting to join the discussion? Craig?
Yeah, I think this is well done. I think everything makes sense. What I do like is additional options that are created here for our downtown core, should the need arise. And with that being a special district, I think perhaps those could be useful down the road. So I'm definitely in favor of it.
Okay, Alder Smith?
I agree with Craig. I think that it gives us some flexibility, but also I think for the business owner, they have options. So I think making it more clear and giving those people those options is a good move in the right direction. So I agree. I think this is well done.
Okay, any other comments or questions from the commission? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the text amendment for the Unified Development Code. If you are in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
If you are opposed, please say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 is a public hearing for the Unified Development Code text amendment filed by the City of Onalaska related to site and lot dimension standards within the mixed-use community and mixed-use neighborhood districts. The applicant is the City of Onalaska. I'll open the public hearing and ask first if anyone would like to speak in favor of this Unified Development Code text amendment. Second call, if anyone would like to speak in favor of this text amendment related to site and lot dimension standards within the mixed use community and the mixed use neighborhood districts. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak in favor. That part of the hearing is now closed, and I'll ask if anyone would like to speak against this text amendment. Anyone wishing to speak against? Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak against this text amendment. The public hearing is now closed, and I will turn to our city planner, Katie Aspenson, for a brief recap on this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. The mixed-use districts within our Unified Development Code allow a number of purely residential uses. And today, if a developer intends to construct a purely residential project, they have to provide the minimum open space requirements that's found in the R3 medium density residential and R4 high density residential districts. Upon review of the UDC with a potential new project, there was clarification needed to make sure that the minimum lot dimensions and site dimensions of only residential development would be appropriately utilized. Included in the text below you are references to 2 tables within our UDC where the zoning administrator is responsible for determining minimum setbacks and spacings between those structures, and also how those parcel lines come together in order to meet the intent of the UDC. All of the other specific standards related to the mixed-use community district and mixed-use neighborhood districts are to remain unchanged. The text is before you this evening. I'm happy to address any questions you may have.
Thank you for that, Katie. I'll now turn this matter over to the Plan Commission.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Unified Development Code text amendment filed by the city of Onalaska related to the site and lot dimension standards within the mixed use community and mixed use neighborhood districts as noted in agenda number 5.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Tom Smith, seconded by Craig Brightsprecher to approve this text amendment. Is there any discussion?
Makes perfect sense. Seems like housekeeping to me.
Not seeing or hearing any other discussion. The motion on the floor is to approve this text amendment regarding the lot dimension standards within the identified districts. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 6 is a public hearing for the Unified Development Code text amendment filed by the city of Onalaska related to screening standards for outdoor storage areas. The applicant is the city of Onalaska. I'd like to open the public hearing and ask if anyone is here wishing to speak in favor of this Unified Development Code text amendment. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak in favor regarding the text amendment for the screening standards. That portion of the hearing is now closed, and I will ask if anyone would like to speak against this text amendment. Second call for anyone wishing to speak against. Third and final call for anyone wishing to speak against the text amendment related to screening standards. The public hearing is now closed, and I will ask our city planner, Katie Aspenson, for a brief recap on this topic.
Thank you, Mayor. Today, the UDC requires specific screening regulations for refuse disposal areas, outdoor storage areas, loading areas, mechanical equipment, and off-street parking. Upon review of the UDC, the city staff are proposing the following text amendment specifically related to outdoor storage area. In primary, to require that outdoor storage areas be screened along the parcel lines, not just areas that happen to abut a residential property. The intent of this is to provide screening protections to neighboring businesses and uses, as well as those that are directly visible from a roadway. All other elements of site screening regulations are to remain unchanged. The text is before you this evening. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And with that being said, I will turn this matter over to the Plan Commission.
I would make a motion to adopt the Unified Development Code text amendment related to screening standards for outdoor storage areas.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Craig, seconded by Skip, to approve this text amendment of the Unified Development Code related to screening standards. Any discussion?
I have a question. The question is, do we know of any facilities that are in violation of this right now?
We just finished working with a particular business who had a fence, but it was not slatted. And as part of their redevelopment plan, they agreed to slat that as to give privacy from Interstate 90. And they're willing to do that. And through discussions of interpretation of this particular ordinance, we felt it was better to be very clean, specifically saying that we want to see that screening along property lines where you can do a wall, a fence, or fence with slatting. So we're giving people options for how to accommodate it, but we're also trying to protect those neighboring property values for not just residences, but also commercial businesses.
Thank you.
Okay. Jan, did you have a question?
Yes, I do, I understand that giving people options, but, some businesses with outdoor storage, even an 8-foot fence is not high enough. It does not screen the storage from, the view. I'm thinking of specifically the Paradise Pool and Spa that was on Sand Lake Road. Those things were you call those hot tubs, sorry, were stacked up quite high, much higher than an 8-foot fence would be. So that would be one. Phillips fencing over by the treehouse. Not sure what that is, French Road, that frontage road. They have outdoor storage that definitely, I think their fence is 6 foot, maybe it's 8. I don't know. I haven't gone up there and measured it. But is there any case where we would want or desire the fence to be just slightly higher? Is there a possibility to ask for a alteration in this if we found that it was not screening appropriately?
So typically, if you look at the remainder of our code, 8 foot high is the height of fencing that we max people out at. There is an example of, if you look at Menards, they have much higher than an 8 foot high wall that screens off their property. But people also have the ability to do a vegetated screen, and this doesn't prevent that. So people could do trees, bushes that can grow taller. 8 feet just seems to be the standard, industry standard size for a height of a fence, but it would be up to the Plan Commission if you felt that 8 feet high was not tall enough.
I can understand that for a residential area, but I'm looking more of a commercial area which Menards would be. Just a thought. Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Greg?
I think the object here is to mitigate, not necessarily hide everything. Attempting to do that is going to be impossible. And it's also could create burdens for those property owners. So I think the direction and the recommendation by staff, I find very, very palatable.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve the Unified Development Code text amendment related to screening standards for outdoor storage areas. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item 7 is regarding a special exception to the sign code application to allow for a flagpole to exceed 60 feet in height and a flag to exceed 100 square feet for the property located at 1200 Crossing Meadows Drive on Alaska. This is tax parcel ID number 183290-10. And the applicant is Camping World. Katie, could you give us a brief recap of this topic?
Thank you, Mayor. The applicant is requesting to install a 100-foot tall flagpole with an 1,800 square foot flag in a parking lot island that's located approximately 65 feet from the main entrance to Camping World. The flag location is at least 100 feet away from all property lines. According to section 14.02.22.b.12, flags shall not exceed 100 square feet per face. The maximum height shall be 50 feet for flags larger than 60 square feet. In the application and summary that has been included with you, the applicant did not address potential noise concerns as part of their application. City staff do have concerns regarding the noise that could be generated from the halyard and shackles hitting the metal flagpole, as well as the 1,800 square foot flag itself. There are a number of residential dwellings approximately 400 feet from the proposed flagpole location, and potential noise from the flag may cause notable disturbance to neighbors. While there are means to reduce the noise, overall, the noise created by the flapping flag of that size cannot be mitigated. The property owner will be required to adhere to section 11.02.21 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to loud and unnecessary noise. There's review criteria included in the application that the applicant has addressed. The first are the particular provisions and requirements of the sign ordinance regulation, which I already read into the record. To note, the proposed height of the flagpole and the flagpole itself are permitted per the Lacrosse Airport Height Overlay District. They have received FAA approval for the proposed project if approved by the city. The second are what are the special conditions, circumstances, or characteristics of the land, building, or structure that prevent the use of current sign regulations in compliance with requirements of the ordinance. According to the applicant, other retail businesses in the Crossing Meadows Shopping Center have direct view from Interstate 90 for passing motorists and state that Camping World's location only has a small amount of visibility from Interstate 90. The applicant expects a large share of businesses patrons will come from Interstate 90, and the signature flag will draw attention to the business and provide a reference landmark. The third criteria are what are the particular burdens that would result if the specified provisions or requirements of the sign ordinance were applied to the subject property. The applicant states that the flag is an identifiable feature commonly associated with Camping World facilities, and again noted that the FAA has reviewed the flagpole request and determined that the construction as proposed does not exceed obstruction standards and would not be a hazard to air navigation. The applicant maintains that the proposed development will have no negative impacts on the community, neighborhood, and/or general public interest. The applicant further states that denying the exception would be unreasonably burdensome as it will limit exposure of Camping World to potential patrons. Number 4, what is the minimum extent to which it would be necessary to deviate the requirements in order to permit the proposed construction of signage? The applicant states the minimum request is a 50-foot height deviation from the maximum allowable height for flagpoles and a 1,700 square foot deviation from the ordinance maximum allowable per flag sign face in order to install a flag of the correct scale and proportion. Further included in the application were additional standards that city staff reviewed the request against found within the special exception application. In reviewing those 8 criteria, city staff felt that 3 of those standards were not met. 1 was not applicable and 4 standards were not met. 3 were met, 1 was not applicable, and 4 were not met per city staff review. Number 3, the burden is not self-created. The city allows for the installation of flags throughout our community with specified maximum heights and sizes. The applicant is requesting a significant deviation from these maximum sizes in order to provide a large-scale visibility of a flag from Interstate 90 and State Trunk Highway 53-157. The 5th criteria, visibility issues due to trees, buildings, etc., from a different parcel. Based upon field inspections completed by city staff, as well as the attached images that are included in your packet this evening, Camping World has notable visibility along Interstate 90, both westbound and eastbound. City staff agree that Camping World has limited view from 53 and 157, both northbound and southbound. However, the bulk of the businesses within the Crossing Meadows Shopping Center have similar issues unless they are directly abutting highways 53, 157. Number 6, special exception is necessary due to special circumstances. In review of the application, city staff do not observe any special circumstances that Camping World has to receive this exception. Rather, as stated in the application, the applicant maintains that the current proposed flag height of 100 feet with a flag of 1,800 square feet is the minimum extent to deviate the requirements in order to permit the proposed construction of signage. The applicant also states that the desire is to provide a flagpole with flag of correct scale and proportion to allow identification amongst the many other businesses in the site area. Based upon these statements, it appears as though Camping World intends to use the proposed flag as a freestanding sign. No sign in the city is allowed to be 100 feet tall, as the maximum allowed height of any sign in the city is 45 feet above the grade of a street, and no sign is allowed to be 1,800 square feet. Freestanding signs for this particular parcel under the B3 zoning district can be up to 200 square feet in overall size, and facade or your wall signage can be up to a maximum of 500 square feet per facade. Camping World has the opportunity today to apply and install additional 3 freestanding signs on their property and 2 additional wall signs facing the south, the neighborhood area, and also west 12th Avenue South, should they apply, and that would not require a special exception. The 7th is the special exception is not granted for convenience of the applicant. City staff believe that this request is being asked for the convenience of a regional national business which wishes to use a standard sign, which is not a reason to grant a special exception as noted on the special exception sign permit application. The applicant notes within their cover letter that it is the signature flagpoles they have incorporated with many of their locations across the nation as it brings a sense of identification to their facility. Many businesses throughout Onalaska over the years have requested standard business signage, and the city has historically required businesses to adhere to Onalaska's sign code. Before you this evening is consideration of the special exception application. The applicant is here to address any questions that you may have of them, and I'm here to address any questions of the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Katie. What is a desire of the Plan Commission?
I would make a motion to deny the special exception to the sign code for the property located at 1200 Crossing Meadows Drive, Onalaska, tax parcel number 18-3290-10.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Craig. It's been seconded by Tom. Is there discussion? Craig? Let Craig go first here. Made the motion.
I spent a lot of time working on our most recent sign ordinances with staff. I think we all spent a lot of time giving those appropriate consideration. I can tell you without reservation or hesitation that Onalaska's sign codes are probably some of the most reasonable, in some cases generous, of any community in the area. And I see there's absolutely no justification for just ignoring that, granting this type of exemption or exception just because someone wants it. That opens the door to all kinds of other inconsistencies down the road, and I don't want any part of it.
Thank you. Was it Bill?
I agree with what you're saying. I have a question. Did were the neighbors informed that there was a proposal to put this big flag within hearing distance of their property?
A public hearing is not required for a special exception. So the odds are that no neighbor is aware of the request. They're likely aware that Camping World is going in as the signage has been installed on the building and construction has begun. But of this particular request, no, they are not aware of that today.
So just playing devil's advocate here, I mean, if we said, okay, go ahead, do it, would at what point would they have an opportunity to express their opinion?
Likely after the flag was installed.
Oh, okay. Case closed. Thank you.
Hey, Jan, did you have a comment or question?
Yes, I'm really not in favor of this. It doesn't seem like you just drive down the highway and say, oh, look, there's an RV place. I'm going to go in and buy an RV, you know. But I do have a question, and that is, we asked the Luther High School to take down the flagpole, and this is not that far, as the crow flies. I printed out the map here from that flagpole. I don't understand how the FAA could have approved this. I mean, the runway heads right there.
Wasn't that the stealth tower?
Huh?
Wasn't that the stealth tower over there?
Katie,
Luther?
do you know, what are some, can you give us some examples of some other heights and dimensions of flags in our community for comparison? Like the Luther High one, do you know what that was? Jared knows?
Jared may have a better idea of the Perkins sign.
Yeah, I think our assistant engineer shared that with you, didn't he?
He
I
said he estimated it was about 60 square or 60 feet tall. But it was not the 1,800 square feet. It was notably larger. What is being proposed this
I
evening?
believe the cross sign is 60 foot. Their flagpole.
So it's entirely possible that there are flags that exceed these rules today because we have not always regulated heights of flag poles. This came in when we redid our sign ordinance.
Okay, Tom?
I just like to concur. I think that we should deny this. I just think where it's located too, just not the exception that it's that tall and standing out, from the highway, but just it is a neighborhood surrounded and it's this very confined area with all the other things around it. So I just think it would look really out of place there if you're coming down 12th or Rossi Meadows Road. And I mean, the other area, I get the idea for the highway. I get that because I just drove by the one in Madison and it's big. You can see it for quite a while off of I-90. But they're also right there on the highway, which is different. And it's a different layout than what we would have. So I just don't think it would be a good idea to make that exception.
Yeah, you get something that big out in a wide open space, for example, Pine Island, Orinoco area over in Minnesota. It's a lot in my mind, but still it works better there than it does in a more closed in environment. Also, I think their visibility is not that bad, especially given the fact that there are other options for signage that they can use to increase their visibility if it's that important.
Thank you. Are there any other comments or questions? Okay, the motion on the floor is to deny the special exemption. All those in favor of denying it, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The special exemption to the sign code is denied unanimously. Thank you. Item 8, discussion and possible action for a unified development code text amendment related to a use-specific standards for schools, elementary or secondary. Katie, can you give us a brief recap on this item, number 8?
Thank you, Mayor. The Unified Development Code currently regulates that all elementary schools, both public and private, be located on a 2-acre minimum site with a 40-foot principal setback from all with a 40-foot setback from all parcel lines, that's how far back the principal structure of the school has to be. So there's 2 requirements today. The city of Onalaska has required these standards since the creation of the zoning ordinance back in 1969. It is assumed that these standards were required to allow for student outdoor play areas. When the UDC was adopted in 2020, the standard was not changed. Upon review of all existing schools, both public and private in Onalaska, each site is in excess of the 2-acre minimum. However, as shown below in the table, 3 of the 8 schools do not meet the 40-foot setback from every property line and are thus considered legal non-conforming. It would be possible for these schools in question to request a planned unit development, similar to what St. Paul's Lutheran did in 2021, to waive that setback and become legal conforming should the standards remain in effect. City staff completed research into the 2-acre minimum requirement and found that it's very common for states to require minimum lot sizes for schools. The most common requirement for elementary schools was a 5-acre minimum, and as the school type increased to middle school, secondary, high school, the acreage requirement increased substantially. Likely this was due to the sizes of outdoor athletic areas, soccer fields, football fields, baseball fields, and such facilities for extracurricular activities. The majority of the states, including Minnesota, require a minimum lot size. However, some states set the minimum in terms of acres and others in the minimum square footage per student. Some states go even so far as delineating between the required sizes for indoor spaces and certain amounts for outdoor spaces. The square foot per student is similar to how the state of Wisconsin regulates childcare facilities. City staff were unable to identify a state of Wisconsin minimum lot size requirement or a similar requirement in other municipalities of Onalaska's size. Further, city staff were unable to find a minimum setback requirement for schools in any capacity search of across the country and also strictly in Wisconsin. The city received a request to consider removing the above mentioned standards to allow existing non-residential buildings to be converted into small 50 students or less schools. In lieu of these standards, the base zoning districts would be enforced in terms of a B1 district versus a B2 versus a B3. Many of them have different setbacks for rear yard, side yard. So they would be enforced based on those district standards instead of a minimum of a 40-foot from any parcel line. And then there would also be a minimum square footage requirement per student to be calculated to determine proper spacing requirements for outdoor play areas and indoor play areas. In order to facilitate a discussion before you this evening, city staff had put out a couple questions for the Plan Commission to consider. And also some examples of schools that are under as shown for Minnesota, less than 550, Oklahoma under 450 students, examples of minimum square footages per elementary versus middle school versus high school student. Noting some of those are interior only and others are for both indoor and outdoor. So we are looking this evening for discussion and consideration of the Plan Commission if you're interested in modifying the existing standards that we have today. If you are, you can direct city staff to draft you language based on your feedback this evening, and we can come back the next month with modified standards if you so choose. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Katie. Do the plan commissioners have any questions or comments on this topic?
I would, I guess I would make the comment that it might be good to evaluate the existing UDC standards. I'm not in favor, at least today, of making or putting guidelines in place that accommodate any eventuality for anybody who wants to set up a school. So I want to be careful of that. I think there has to be some uniformity and consistency. I know the state has some requirements in place as far as, square footage for students and that type of thing. But with that being said, I know education seems to be changing and how it's conducted, and therefore what facilities are required to conduct those activities. But by the same token, we have to understand they could also change back a different direction in the foreseeable future. We don't know. So having a knee-jerk reaction to the way it's done today or for the last year and the way we anticipate it's going to be for the next year probably isn't all encompassing enough. So I hesitate to start cutting everything back wholesale. But I think we need to evaluate it and give proper consideration where it needs to be given and kind of go from there.
Okay, I guess I'm not quite sure when you say, like, in what ways should they evaluate it more? I feel like they did evaluate it in quite a lot
Well-
of detail, just to give staff more guidance if the Plan Commission is going to agree that they should spend more time evaluating it, they would need to know what they should evaluate, right?
My question is this, did we look, for example, the example that was brought forward tonight, did we look at a scenario like that?
So when we did our review, as stated, we weren't able to find anyone of similar size within our state that regulated minimum acreage requirement.
Yep.
Comparatively on Alaska to many other states throughout the country, we're low. They're usually between 3 to 5 acres and we require 2. So that was one thing to note. The 40-foot setback requirement, we were not able to find any sort of regulation anywhere. outside of Onalaska. So if that was, I would say that that could be a tool that you could give back to those schools. If you don't think that the 40-foot setback is as important. So it goes both ways. One, you want to make sure that you're providing people space, the students, and then you also have the other hand of, is that 40-foot doing that for them? To note that St. Paul's Lutheran was allowed to not have that 40-foot setback on, I believe, at least, 2 areas of their particular property. So it was deemed appropriate, but they had outdoor space otherwise, and they met the minimum acreage requirement. So there's nothing saying today that the schools that do not meet the rule of St. Patrick's Catholic School, Irving Perch, and Northern Hills, they all exceed 1 acre. They could all come in tomorrow and ask for planned unit development to strictly not have to follow that 40-foot setback requirement. So one of the things that we're consistently looking at when we're reviewing our code is if it's something that's repeated and continually being asked to waive, is that rule valid any longer? We have not had anyone request to be less than the 2 acres outside of the request this evening that's before you, but the 40-foot is one that you could bring properties that are non-compliant today into compliance. The person who, Ms. Werner, may also have additional information to share with you if you had questions for her as well.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any other questions or comments? Tom?
I would just comment that I think we should look at it. I mean, I really do think, some of these standards that have been put in place go way back when, as you commented, and things have changed. Now, I also agree that, we don't want everybody to be able to jump in and create a new school. But I think we have to be reasonable and flexible with the times too. And when you tell how dated this is, some of the things, I think we should at least look at it and then look at some flexibility that what we could do without being too dramatic. And giving, people the flexibility with the proper requirements. So I definitely think we should look at it and at least take a review of it and see if there are things that we definitely could do easily. And then some other things that if you think, these might be good, but they might cause challenges, bring them back to the commission for our feedback.
Kitty, what is the lot size and setback for Ms. Warner's property?
So Ms. Werner's property is under the 2 acre requirement. Do you have that information offhand?
You can come up to the microphone. Begin by stating your name again, just for our transcriptionist. So he.
My name is Amy Werner. The location is 1407 State Road 35. The parcel is 0.8 acres and it is restricted by Cordell's on the south and Angelini's on the north, and then Highway 35. And then there's a town road behind it. So it's, if you were to build this building now with the adopted international building code, it wouldn't be allowed. There is extensive remodeling that needs to happen in terms of fire suppression. It did not get included with city sewer and city water. So for us to find a tenant, especially a business that's looking for office space in today's market, was extremely difficult. So as of right now, this building has a 30-year-old roof. The deck is falling off. The siding is in disrepair. It's broken. We're looking to come in. I am a co-owner of First American Roofing and Siding. We're looking to donate our resources to fixing up this building on Highway 35 with the idea of being able to offer a different schooling option. The applicant in mind, our tenant, she couldn't be here today for a family medical issue, but she also specializes in children's mental health. So the approach of this private school is as a whole child approach. There's such a big gap from COVID of kids that were able to learn online versus weren't able to learn online. And right now, teachers are trying to bridge that gap, and it's very difficult. I have many friends that are in teachers and wanting to leave the profession because of this. And I think it would be wise for us as a community to give options to parents where they could get more one-on-one attention with their kids if need be, or just have some more and support in terms of mental health for kids to meet them where they're at. Because what happened is not just isolated to this. I think there's going to be lifelong effects in terms of a business owner looking at future employees. Like, this is our labor force. These are the kids that we're looking to hire, and we want to keep them here in this community. And I feel like we're failing them the entire, I mean, not just in the city of Onalaska, but in general.
Thank you for that insight into the situation. I'm sure we all sympathize with that, I think we can say. Do you know what the setbacks are from the Highway 35 and the town road?
Sure. The Highway 35 is over 40 feet. The town road
Is
is
what?
is over 40 feet. And then the town road on the back, that part is about 15 feet based on doing a map measurement from the tax parcel map, La Crosse County tax parcel, excuse me.
Thank you. And I think Katie had a comment.
So just to reiterate what Ms. Warner had noted, they do have 40-foot, they exceed the 40-foot on State Road 35 and also from Cordell's. So they meet it on 2 of the setbacks. It's about 15-ish feet to the foundation from Sunset Vista. And then it was under 40 on the northern side as well. So they meet the setback on 2 of the 4 sides.
Okay.
I would like to note, however, that they meet the setback of the B2 business district. So if one were to remove the 40-foot setback, this would be an example where that rule, and you just use base districts as those setbacks, they would be allowed to proceed in that case, but they would still have the hurdle of the non-2 acre minimum requirement. So that rule would have to change in addition to allow a school at this location.
Thank you. Do the commissioners have any other comments or questions?
I just-
Okay, let's go with Jan.
Without the 2 acre minimum, do you plan outdoor activity areas for the?
We do, and with the unique location of the property, there is a very steep embankment to Highway 35. With a fenced-in area in the front yard, we feel that we could offer an adequate outdoor play area that is secure and fenced in. There is also a side yard to the south towards Cordell's that has vegetation, excuse me, right now, that does offer some protection and privacy. And one thing to note, that the NCAA has come up with a statistic that there are 2% of kids that get college scholarships based on sports. So having an emphasis on large outdoor area for a very small percentage of students that actually get a scholarship to college for sports, like I said, is kind of one of those things where I feel like it's not meeting up with the times.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Katie,
Is there any direction of the Plan Commission to change the 40-foot setback requirement? Is that something you appear to be in favor of, or?
thank you, Ms. Warner.
Yeah,
I'd be in favor.
I think taking a look at it, but I would be cautious about scholarships. It's never been about scholarships. It's physical activity, elimination of obesity, those types of things. So it's important to have that type of space available for children for physical activities. That's in my mind, and I don't think that's a stretch to do that. I think trying to equate it all to scholarships probably is not the direction to go.
No, I think we're just going to continue on with our discussion here. So what I'm hearing the council or the commission say is that you'd like staff to further consider the recommendations regarding the 40-foot setback, but when it comes to the 2 acre minimum, we're not interested in changing that at this time.
That's kind
Is that what staff, I just want staff to do what the commission wants, and I'm just trying to recap what I heard. So if it's different, just say,
We're low anyway, Katie said, right?
right. Katie?
2 acres.
We are low from the perspective of what states require in terms of the 2 acre. So the other discussion items that were included in the packet were if you were interested in city reviewing any other means of square footage per student. So, but we are low.
Okay, Katie, go ahead, or Aaron. Okay, let me first say, this is Erin Duffer, our Assistant Planning Associate, I think is the correct title. Go ahead, Erin, put her on, or him on, the person. Begin by stating your name and address.
Hello, this is Carolyn Colleen Bostrak. And I am the private school, or the person who's looking to open the private school in the location.
Okay, thank you for joining us. What would you like to say?
I apologize, I couldn't be there in person. I'm currently in the hospital with my father. So, but I did want to zoom in and share about the 2-acre minimum in the space as locations in school, STEM schools. So the school is a STEM private school with no more than 50 students. There was one comment about activity. In activity, we've collaborated actually so that we can use the community spaces within Onalaska. So Onalaska has beautiful community spaces such as the bike trail right behind the building. And also the Omni Centers close by. Some of our students actually belong to the hockey tornado group. And then also the YMCA, which is also close by. And so there's many opportunities for addressing the resilience of both mental resilience and body resilience and nutrition of the learners. And so I just wanted to share that piece as far as space and then schools and then in the way that STEM education has shifted since the rule was enacted.
Thank you very much for sharing that. That does give us additional perspective.
Thank you.
Jared Holter.
The 2 acres, I mean, there's a great difference between a school that's going to have 400 elementary students and need a lot of area. If you've got some sort of school area where you've got, say, 20 students, obviously you should be able to get by with less than 2 acres, but I don't have the exact number of what that number should be, or it's even a sliding scale where you need a minimum outdoor space to do something. But the 2 acres, I think, if we came in with 1,000-person new high school, 2 acres is not going to be enough for that school. So if you have a 20-person school, that may be some sort of a much different model than what I saw when I was growing up, than having a neighborhood school or a customized learning environment. There probably is a place for it, but I don't know exactly what those rules should be at this point, but it's probably something that should be explored.
Thank you, Jared. Anyone else? Staff, do you have enough direction, or do you want to ask some follow-up questions?
I think based on the feedback I received this evening, it would be to reduce the 40-foot setback and overall retain the 2-acre minimum. Unless I have something else you'd like me to address.
Tom?
If we kept the 2-acre minimum, just what it is, can we have exceptions to that if we can build a case for it?
The only exception that one can get from the Unified Development Code is to obtain a variance. So they would have to prove hardship unique to their property.
Okay. But there is an option, a variance.
There is an option, but I don't know if this particular applicant would be successful.
Okay. All right. I just thought I'd ask, because if we leave it at 2, we don't have what Jared was saying, there might be something in between 2 acres and I don't know what it is either, but have some flexibility case by case. So that's where I was thinking. So, okay, thank you.
Okay, I think that was a discussion. Do we need a motion for this one? I think it.
We're gonna bring it back. right?
Oh, okay. Craig would like to make a motion.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Skip's been so quiet tonight. He wants to get in here and make a motion. Motion by Craig, second by Skip to adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No one's ever opposed. 8:01 PM. Thank you, everyone. Good to see